Something important that I've been thinking about is that every single person obviously has their own perspective on life and what is happening here on this earth, where we go and we die, all of that. We all have our own belief systems. And for the most part, I believe that most people are trying to discover, obviously, the truth of things for themselves. But it's important to recognize that none of us, individually, have the full truth. Because truth is ever expanding, and there's always more truth to be had. And because of that, each of us have our perspectives, but our perspectives are limited and can be changed with added information, proof, knowledge, wisdom, gnosis, whatever you want to call it. As we increase in our understanding through experience, our perspective rises. So therefore truth is like ever increasing, ever expanding, ever becoming more, if that makes sense. It leads me to think about when Christ came to fulfill the law. And for example, the 6th commandment, thou shalt not kill, and the 7th commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. When Christ taught his Sermon on the Mount, he increased what was required, basically. And the lower law, or the original 2 commandments, were no longer, murdering was no longer just bad, but being angry in general became wrong. And it wasn't just the physical action of adultery that was now wrong, but also being adulterous in your mind that is now wrong. It also leads me to think about how basically there was the old law and the new law came and fulfilled the old law, just as there's our current earth, but then there'll be a new earth, heaven on earth. And there's a continual cycle here of having to basically take baby steps to get to where we want to go. And sometimes the commandments are there to teach us, but ultimately there might be a larger picture that we're not seeing fully yet. If we keep Christ's fulfilled law, then the old law passes away because of the superiority of the higher law. It then leads me to think about 2 Corinthians chapter 3, which I just heard someone else talk about, and how basically the gospel surpasses the law of Moses.
Beginning with verse 5, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God, who also hath made us able ministers of the New Testament, and not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life. Then verse 14, but their minds were blinded, for until this day remaineth the same veil untaken away is the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Christ.
It also leads me to think about one of my favorite hymns from the LDS faith, that is, If You Could Hide to Kolob, because it talks about how there is no end to truth.
The works of God continue, and worlds and lives abound. Improvement and progression have one eternal round. There is no end to matter, space, spirit, or race. No end to virtue, might, wisdom, light, union, youth, priesthood, or truth. There is no end to glory, there is no end to love, there is no end to being, there is no death above.
Ultimately, if we keep the law of loving one another as we love ourselves, we would keep the ultimate law of loving God with our whole being.